All right, welcome back, and I'm delighted to be joined on the show now here on OTB Sunday by Chloe Watkins and Katie Mullan, both members, of course, of the Irish women's hockey team. Both very welcome, guys, to the show. Thanks a lot for taking the call.
Thanks for having us.
You're fresh out of heat training, which is pretty intense by the sound of things. Can you explain to people who are not elite athletes like me what something like heat training involves at the moment?
Well, we've been lucky enough to use the facilities up here in Sinai, but it's essentially you're on the bike for 45 minutes, doing sort of intervals and that kind of thing. So upping the speed and upping the resistance for a period of time, and then obviously, I don't know what it is. Yeah, and then they come in and take your temperature every few minutes, and then you just try and survive.
Try and get through it. I guess we're speaking to you now off the back of this SoftCo series at Queen's University. So last weekend, and anyone who was following it will have seen how well you guys did. You had the three games against the reigning Olympic champions in Great Britain, a win, a loss, and a draw. Katie, you must be pretty satisfied overall with how last weekend went.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was brilliant that we got such a high quality opposition to come to the north to play against us. And I suppose the biggest thing for us, though, irrespective of the results, is our performance. And we're so proud of our performance in all three games. It gives us huge confidence in the training we've been doing the last few months. And I suppose that's given us a boost now to go back onto the training pitch come next week as well. So yeah, it's just a shame we couldn't have some fans in the stands to kind of enjoy the event with us. But it was brilliant to get the coverage, and I'm sure plenty of people watched it at home.
Chloe, is it all the sweeter beating Team GB? I mean, you hadn't beaten them at international level before last Sunday, if I'm not mistaken, and you managed to score a goal in the game you won. So does it add a little bit of extra spice when it's that kind of rivalry?
Yeah, I think, there's never any extra motivation needed when you're playing your neighbours. So we were all very much excited for this series. And then you add in the fact that we hadn't played international matches in so long. Everyone was really hungry for the win. So it was definitely a factor. But, it was, I suppose, when it's something you haven't done before, as a squad, we're always striving to achieve new things. And it was definitely something we had set our sights on. So we're really delighted with how it went.
And is it the same as Katie said, the performance was so crucial as well. And even that game 3 that you drew dominated the game for large periods, it has to be said. It must be satisfying to get those performances clicking and not only the results as well.
It is we've been training for such a long period now. Sometimes it can be hard to know where you're at. And you kind of need to take a temperature check. So we were a bit uncertain coming in how we'd fare, but I don't think we've ever sort of controlled the matches in the fashion that we did before. So that was really promising. And there's definitely some things that we need to focus on and work on over the next few months. But, we're not looking to peak now anyway. So it's good to have things in mind to target.
Katie, as Chloe says there, to have things in mind to improve on and work on, and constructive criticism is something that improves teams along the way. And even listening to some pundits who know about hockey a lot more than I do, but talking about maybe the conversion rate from penalty corners, things like conceding late on in game 3, those are all minor things, but things that I guess over the next coming months give you and the team a focus on things to improve on as the Olympics draw closer.
Yeah, definitely. And in tournament hockey, those are the high pressure moments that really matter. So in some senses, it's good that those things happen now, that we can work through them on the training pitch to make sure that come tournament time in the summer, they don't happen again. So yeah, definitely huge things to learn from. And our PCA count was positive in the sense that we won a lot of corners in the third game. But we would like to get a better conversion rate there. So that gives us a really, really key takeaway to go away and work on now on the training pitch. And we understand that these games are, huge for us in terms of our development going forward now. And we hope to get more competition in the coming months.
I want to ask you both about lockdown, and how that has been for elite athletes, because you had that wonderful moment in Donnybrook, what seems like such a long time ago now, when you qualified and became the first Irish women's team to qualify for an Olympic Games in hockey. And then you had the anticlimax of the Olympics being postponed for the year. And I think was it maybe last September when you all got back together and started training again. But Chloe, if I might start with you, just I know you I think the last time we spoke to you, you were talking about doing your accountancy work, and I read somewhere you talking about how the boredom of lockdown at one point had you doing jigsaws, 1,000-piece jigsaws, which is extraordinary. So you must be glad to at least have got that part of lockdown over with, and now you can focus back on training and working together.
Yeah, I think the novelty of the jigsaws definitely wore off after 6 or 7 thousand pieces. Yeah. But yeah, I suppose I was lucky enough to be able to go back to work with Mazars. So I had that to kind of keep my day-to-day routine and to try and take off a few exams and that kind of thing. So that definitely kept me busy. But I suppose now we're in the state that, the sort of business end of the season, and we're coming close to the summer, and things are ramping up intensity-wise. So I'm just kind of excited to get back into training full time from that point of view. But it was great to have, and I was certainly fortunate because some people didn't have that, and I also got a puppy, which definitely helped lockdown as well in my house.
What did you call the puppy? You didn't go with a lockdown type name? Something simple, probably.
No, she honestly, we couldn't name her for like 2 or 3 weeks. It was really tough. We were all fighting about it, but we landed on Sadie. So she's great. Can't recommend it enough.
She features on our calls as well, so that's nice.
See, my sister got a puppy right at the start of lockdown as well last March, and has been one of the absolute highlights. It almost distracts you from it, gives you a little bit of a focus. Just a little creature that knows no better.
Yeah, exactly. Just endless happiness and positivity. That's just happy about everything. So it kind of lifts your mood for sure.
Katie, how have you found it? I know you've been working as a visualization engineer and within the medical profession as well, providing 3D printing. So how have you found that? How has your work been impacted over the last year or so?
Yeah, I suppose huge because first of all, we were working on providing PPE in that mad rush that was going on about a year ago now. So we were just trying to help in any way we could with our connections that we have in hospitals, and they were coming to us with all sorts of ideas of how we could help them and what we could maybe provide them with the 3D printers. So that was kind of the first part, but more recently, there's been a huge backlog in surgeries because a lot of surgeries didn't happen, critical surgeries that should have happened. And so they're playing catch up constantly. And I suppose our biggest thing in work is that we help to reduce the surgeon's time in theatre. So I suppose with the backlog and being able to reduce that time, we've been very busy. And similar to what Chloe said, I've been so grateful for my work at Axtale during the time because we were all a bit lost. I know I had stepped away from work just before COVID hit, so I was a bit lost then at the start, and work rang me and said, listen, the work's there if you're ready to come back and work from home for us. So I was absolutely delighted, and yeah, it's been brilliant. I suppose from September, we've been pretty busy back to training as well. So we've been very lucky in that our social interaction has been a lot more than it is for most. And we're so grateful, albeit that it's outside and at a distance, we still get to see each other. So that's a lot more than most are getting.
Yeah, it's absolutely great to have that focus for sure. It definitely helps. Chloe, if I might ask you, like the last couple of years have been a whirlwind for this team, going back to the World Cup final and that amazing run. You made your debut for Ireland as an 18-year-old, I think it was, and I think it wasn't it the final in 2018 in which you made your 200th cap for Ireland. So that must have been when you look back now. Maybe you haven't had a moment to stop and think about it, but it must have been a remarkably special moment to look back and reflect on.
Yeah, it was, and I think it took a while to sink in, really. But yeah, it was honestly a dream come true, and it's crazy how it's all worked out because you know, even at the beginning of the World Cup, remember we were kind of half joking, being like, "Oh, if 6 games to go, you'll get your 200s in the final." And then as the tournament went on, we were actually like, "Okay, hang on, this will well be happening." So it was incredible to have it at that occasion. You know, it was a packed stadium and playing the best team in the world. So it was absolutely a dream come true. I never would have imagined that when I was back at 18 years old playing Scotland. So I was very fortunate.
I know Shirley McKay has the appearances record, but even for yourself, Katie, I don't know your exact figure. I think you're gone over 180 caps now, certainly. But is that 200 mark something you're eyeing up now, and something that's playing on your mind game by game?
I think, those milestones are so special when you reach them, as Chloe alluded to, and you never take any caps for your country for granted. But I don't think it's something you really kind of fixate on too much from game to game. Like, you're not counting them down or anything like that. And then when the day does come, it's a huge honour. But yeah, no, it's not really something I've given much thought to. Because, as Chloe said, it could be in a major tournament, or it could be, in Queens in front of no fans, but it's more about what it means to you as a player than anything else. So yeah.
Chloe, can I ask you about Sean Dancer then? When he came in as head coach from New Zealand, I think it was a couple of years ago, or just under 2 years ago. It was a high profile appointment, of course, but what has he brought to the setup, do you think, over the last couple of years?
Yeah, he's brought an attacking style of play, that's for sure. Even if we look back to the World Cup, that was very much, our silver medal was very much won on the back of our defence and our defensive unit as a team, and our set pieces, of course. But he's come in now and really tried to develop this attacking style of play, and it's, it is quite an Oceania style of play, like Australia and New Zealand like to go forward and attack a lot. So it's something we've tried to embrace, and a transition like that can take time. So I suppose we have benefited from the extra training period with the Olympics being postponed, and thankfully we saw, some of that attacking play this weekend, and there was some good link-up play with forwards and that kind of thing. So it's just a different mindset as well, I suppose, when we've been used to more defensive style of play. But it's been great. He's really implementing his the patterns and things he wants us to playing. He's a very relaxed, I suppose, individual as well. So that's great as well. And yeah, we've just been trying to get our heads around it now, and I think everybody's enjoying it, to be honest.
We should definitely talk about the Tokyo and the Olympics, of course, only 4 months out. But what's the squad competition like at the moment, Katie? And there, I think, is it maybe 30 of you together now, and you're looking at a squad of 23 to travel to Tokyo itself. So is there a lot of competition at the moment for places to even be on the plane to Tokyo, or how is it working at the moment?
Yeah, I think the closer you get, the competition for selection definitely increases, and that sort of little seed in everyone's head grows legs as you get closer and closer. I think we have such depth in our squad now. A number of years ago, our squad might have picked itself, bar 1 or 2 players, and now there's huge competition, huge cover across all lines. Something Sean's worked on as well is the versatility of players. So players can play in a number of different positions. So you just don't know where things will be, and the team that would be picked tomorrow will be very different from the team that will be picked in a couple of months' time. But with that being said, the games are few and far between at the minute. So we really have to use them to develop the team and develop the team's performance for competition and for the Europeans and the Olympics. So we can't afford to be wasting time with selection worries, and that's been really good for us, I think, in terms of going out and performing. So, but yeah, no, there's always that seed in everyone's head about 16 players going to Olympics. It's not something that we're used to in hockey. It's normally 18 players. So, but you can't overthink that either, because sometimes it isn't the best way to go about it if you overthink it. So.
It's going to be a strange tournament no matter what, because of COVID. But I guess the issue of vaccinating athletes that are heading over to Tokyo has been brought up, and I know even Sport Ireland director Liam Harbison has been talking about it and saying a lot of back team physios and frontline workers have already been vaccinated. Have you guys had any? Do you get any communication from people as to a vaccination program for yourselves, or at any stage in advance of heading over to Tokyo? Is that going to happen, do you think?
We haven't really gotten any information on that specifically. I suppose the biggest thing, and we're very realistic, like the biggest thing is the vulnerable get vaccinated for now, and I suppose we don't intend on those conversations even opening up until that box is ticked and all the vulnerable are vaccinated. And we've been able to do huge amounts to date with our protocols and with what we've implemented in camp. And there's no reason why that we can't continue to function like that. So yeah, we just we just control the controllables, and that's not really something that we've heard much about to date. So we just see how the next couple of months unfold, and hopefully, as I say, the vulnerable all get their vaccines.
And Chloe, I know the plan pre-COVID, the Olympic plan for yourselves was the holding camp in Fukuroi, and then you have, of course, the Athletes Village in Tokyo. Are you trying not to think about all of those things and the build-up? Or are you in the mindset where you're kind of soaking up every single moment of the build-up over the next number of months?
It's a funny one. I find myself yo-yoing between the Olympics, but then as Katie said earlier, we have a European Championships in June, which is also a World Cup qualifier for us. So there's a bit of added pressure there. So I've actually kind of switched my focus more short term to June's Europeans, and then I can deal with Tokyo after that. If when selection comes, some of the pictures and the information coming from the Olympic Council and the setup that's over there, it seems fantastic. So it's a really exciting thing that's in the back of your head, but it's always nice to put images to what your thoughts are. So that helps as well. But we have a busy schedule now on the lead up to the Europeans, so at least we're kind of kept busy with that.
And Katie, for yourself, even I noticed that there's a funny trend of, I guess it makes sense for Olympians, and especially first-time Olympians, they like to mark the achievement with something big. I see a lot of people get the tattoos, the 5 Olympic rings tattoo. Do you have any big plans to mark the occasion once it's finished, or does that all depend on how things go over there?
I don't know. It's not actually something we've really ever talked about. I think there'd be enough abuse going around in our group that if you were to go to that extent anytime soon. But listen, it's such a huge thing for us. It was the goal at the beginning of the journey, and I suppose we're very much going to the Olympics to perform and to make an impact. We're not just going to fill a spot. So we're super excited, and I suppose our families are too. It's as much about them as it is about us, and I'm sure they'll find ways to mark the occasion in the summer.
Will you get a chance, do you think, to, I guess it depends on COVID, but assuming you're all in a bubble over there as athletes, will you all get a chance to kind of go and support some of the other Irish athletes taking part in, I guess, across the different sports?
Not sure yet. I think it'll probably be a very different Olympics to what has been in the past. So we don't know if any of that will be possible. But of course, the hockey team would love to be at any event that an Irish athlete is competing at. So we're a loud bunch, and I'd say they'll hear us before they'll see us. But it'd be great. Yeah, it'd be great to see other athletes compete. So hopefully that'll be allowed.
And Chloe, have you noticed since the World Cup in 2018, and there has undoubtedly been an increased interest increased coverage as well, and an increased fan base in your team. Is that something that the whole squad has been firmly aware of, that since 2018 and since the Olympic qualification as well, that the interest and I guess enthusiasm for every single game you play in now has been just multiplied?
Yeah, I think you do notice it. I suppose when you've gone from absolutely no interest to now some interest, you do notice the difference. And certainly, that period after the World Cup, the reception we got at home and the coverage then after that was unprecedented for us. So it was hard not to take it in. But what's great is that it's been maintained, and we never would have had a series against a friendly series televised or covered in the media like it was this weekend. So that was a real positive and definitely progress. So hopefully it can continue, because I think just increasing coverage and increasing exposure in female sports is going to have a positive effect across the board. So the more it can happen, the better.
And Katie, that interest is especially important for young girls in sport. And we had a report out recently that we covered on Off the Ball, research from Sport Ireland, talking about, by the ages of 13 to 15, many girls have labelled themselves already not sporty, and that is, a real barrier for young girls taking part in sport. Do you think we're in the right direction? We're doing the right things in which to not just get young girls involved in sport in Ireland, but to keep them participating in sport in Ireland?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's been small changes, but I do think that there's a long way to go. And it was the same with like the 20 by 20 movement. There was progress made, but we still have a bit to go to get to where we need to be. I think, myself and Chloe were actually chatting about it before, and the biggest thing for me is that there's such a variety of sports out there. And so I think maybe young teenagers, they maybe label themselves as a non-sporty person too early because they've just tried one or two sports and they just don't enjoy them, so they decide that they're not sporty. But actually there's such a huge variety, and if you look across sport in Ireland, there's successful female sportswomen like in so many different sports, and the more that they are set up to be role models for these kids, then the more spread of sports there'll be across all of the schools. So I think that's just the biggest thing. The biggest message I would give to any young kid is, just try as many different sports as you can, because 9 times out of 10 you will find one that you enjoy more than the rest, and don't be too quick to label yourself as a non-sporty person.
What do you think, Chloe? I mean, some of the figures we had seen recently were saying that 1 in 2 girls have dropped out of sport by the time they're 13 years old, which is quite young, to have made that decision so finally. But do you agree with Katie that maybe it's a case of women being more visible, and role models like yourselves, even like Katie Taylor, like Annalise Murphy, being so much more visible these days than, say, even 5-10 years ago?
Yeah, I think it'll have a big impact. Changing that perception around women in sport and female athletes, and just, I suppose, body image issues, all those kind of things around it. Exposure of athletes is going to help that. And I think as well, the enjoyment factor is key at that age as well. And certainly for us still, that's the root of it all. If you're not enjoying it, you're not gonna give the time to it, and you're not gonna sacrifice the other social things that are going on in your life for it. So I think that has to be key to everything at that age group as well, and just making sure they're enjoying it. But hopefully the perception can change around women in sport and girls in sport, and it can be seen as a positive thing, because we've only seen positive benefits in our lives from it, from a working perspective, studying, doing exams, that kind of thing. There's only positive benefits, so hopefully it can change over the next few years.
Well, listen, Chloe Watkins and Katie Mullan, really appreciate the time as always. Best of luck at the European Championships in June, and of course the Olympic Games in Tokyo later on in the summer as well. I'm sure we'll check in before you fly off to Tokyo, but all the very best of luck in the coming months, and thanks a lot for taking the call.
Thank you.
Thanks for talking. Bye.